To experience more flow state, you don't have to work harder. You have to be more available. To be more available, see yourself as an architect, strategically planning and designing what enters his mind. Your mind is a tool, and when you start using it for deep work, working on the right things at the right times, with the right intention, your life will have changed in 6 months, more than you can imagine right now. And I can't stop thinking about this idea of breakthrough acceleration. How can you live your dream life by compressing years of struggle through months of deep work, even if you only have 5 hours per week? To do this, I've been experimenting with building what I call a mental firewall, almost like dopamine architect, where you are very selective of what you let in, because I care about entering the flow state more often and faster with less effort by just being clever about it. I mean, why would you take the slowest route to your point, to your destination, to your goals, if you can get there directly, faster? And I mean, everyone is saying that this shortcut, that direct route, is not possible. It's not there. There are no shortcuts, right? But there are. This is why some people become millionaires in their 20s, while others are struggling their whole life trying to make ends meet. So before diving into the shortcuts that have worked for me, let's first dive into the 3 building blocks to create your own perfect routine that works for you effortlessly. Because some people wake up at 6 a.m., have kids, while others are in their teens and wake up at 9 a.m. So what are these 3 building blocks? Well, the first one is create. The second one is empty, untruth. And the third one is sustain. These are just names, but let's dive into them. So what do I mean with create? I think it's obvious. Anything that you create. It can be work for your 9-to-5 job or freelance work, or it can be like me, writing, filming, or any other deep work we do for our business, or to generate more income. Because let's be honest, that is the goal for most. And I talked earlier about doing the right things, but it's a big assumption that you already work on the right things. Or better said, how many things you're working on that are effective. Because the truth is that I have been working on a lot of things that are not effective. You have to experiment in order to find those things that are in those outlier categories, the things that are actually moving the needle, whatever it is. In my case, it could be increasing income from social media or posting more long form YouTube videos. So it's super important that you find those things in that category. The things that are moving the needle. So look back at the past, last 6 months. What have been moving the needle? What things were effective? Depending on the goals you have, of course. So let's say it is creating online and sharing it under your own name so you can eventually monetize the truth you share, the people you follow, the people who want to know more, who want your help. Because you share things that actually work for you and they start to do it and it works for them too. But of course, it has to be true. That's why I care so much about the truth. Now let's go into the second block after I take a sip and break my teeth. It is ridding yourself of untruth. So those are all the things that do not work, to keep it simple. Just see truth as the things that are effective, the things that work, and untruth as the opposite. So what could be an example of untruth? Well, for example, creating YouTube shorts about topic X in style Y is not an effective use of my time if I optimize for money. Let's say that's something that I found out for myself based on the things I've been doing. Not because someone else says, but after I tried it for myself. Then you want to realize that. Because there's a clear difference between having done the experiment, having done the thing, and realizing the result of it. Really seeing it clearly, so you don't fall for the same trap. To give you a clear example, a father can become angry each time at his child, but the child doesn't listen each and every time. Now you would say the father now knows, okay, I shouldn't become angry anymore, or at least should try something else if I want to make sure my child listens. But this is not the case. This happens a lot. People keep getting angry. So almost like a light bulb moment needs to go on. And that's what I mean with emptying yourself of untruth. And through that, you find more truth, because that will be the only thing that is left. So another example of untruth could be, after I watched a lot of videos from experienced creators, I now believe that I have to repurpose my content everywhere, because changing this long form video into a few shorts will always be worth my time or my team members' time. But you only find this out through yourself. Otherwise, everything else stays a belief. And that is not bad. It's just not effective. But what is effective is emptying yourself of untruth. Because once you have seen the truth clearly, there's no action needed. And with this, don't believe me, just look at your own life. For instance, after you got your hand too close to fire, you felt pain. And that pain wasn't worth it. Or you saw a movie where someone was burned alive. Having seen that, having realized the consequences, because that's all there is, you don't need to do anything anymore to stay away from fire, at least far enough. You don't need me to tell you you have to stay away from the fire. It all happens effortlessly. More about this in a bit. Let's go to number 3, sustain. Well, to sustain anything, the creation process, and even the things you can do, which I go about in a little bit, to empty yourself of untruth, you have to sustain yourself. And it seems very obvious, but it's an important block, especially the timing of it. Because what are examples of sustaining yourself? Well, drinking water, or this nice drink, which doesn't look that nice. But also, of course, food, a healthy heartbeat, so anything around activity, walking, exercising. And for the creation, inspiration. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of writer's block, creation block. So that is number 3. And to deep dive a little bit more into emptying yourself of untruth, let me give you an example that is familiar if you have played Call of Duty in the past, right? You have your minimap, which is in the corner of the screen when you're gaming. By the way, before I continue, understand that gaming can be part of your deep work if it leads you to your breakthrough, whatever your goals are. I mean, if you make money from gaming, or your goal is more joy in life, and you already have enough money and you want to game because gaming gives you joy, well, then that can be part of your creation block. But honestly, for most it isn't. What I'm just trying to say here is that there's no right or wrong, because I'm sure just when I mention gaming or this minimap, your mind instantly comes up with, well, gaming isn't good, you shouldn't be gaming. And that's also a belief. Anyways, checking this minimap while you're gaming prevents you from dying. And in real life, this minimap can be your thoughts, where you take time to look at them or to hear them when you speak them out loud. Because thoughts are happening all day, every day, constantly. And checkmating your thoughts that are not true will prevent you from the average life you fear, of never reaching that breakthrough, the things you want, your desires, forever remaining an angry dad. Because that's the only thing this dad has to do. Looking at his thoughts, understanding why he becomes angry, and clearly looking at the results. And automatically, once he realizes, he will change his approach. If he, of course, wants a healthy child. So scanning your map is part of that second block. I'm not saying you should do this. I'm not saying you should do this an hour a day or even at all. But they are just consequences. The better you know this map, the lower the likelihood that you spawn near your biggest enemy. And if you don't know what spawning means or respawning means, basically coming back alive in a game after you died. So what can you do? What are some practical things that I do to scan your thought that are effective? Well, one of the things that I really like is the walk and talk. I basically get my phone, I start recording, voice memo app. I always do it outside, but you can do it everywhere. I also do it inside. But I just like nature. It also feels like it expands my mind when I'm outside in nature especially. Then I just talk through whatever I think in that moment, whatever the problem is that I face, or the things that I've experienced that day that makes me feel different, either very excited or worse. And I start to find the truth, because I care about that, because I know it is effective. And I'm not saying you should do this, just giving you an example. When I do this, I find a lot of untruth in my thoughts. And hearing them out loud, to me, is very effective. And emptying yourself of untruth can also mean finding truth in things, in books, for instance, in documentaries, in movies. By the way, great movie that I watched recently was Perfect Days. There's not much talking, so there's not much truth to be found in words, but definitely in the silence of that movie. Just check it out on YouTube, perhaps a trailer. And then of course you also have watching courses or creators online, journaling, but all with a great filter. And this filter is very important. Otherwise, you're emptying yourself of untruth, but you're filling yourself again with untruth. So even while watching this video, you'll hear things and you believe them, it's likely, which is not true. But to find out, you can experiment. And this filter basically acts as a layer for reducing the things you experiment with, because you only want to experiment with the things that have a high likelihood of being effective. And then another example of emptying yourself of untruth could be through writing. I already mentioned journaling, but writing like I do a lot, and creating like this, recording even, because this is not scripted and I really think before I say something. That is also part of emptying yourself of untruth. And when you do that, you have more and more and more truth within you to share about, to create. Even if you don't share anything online, you just have your own company, or you work a 9 to 5, or you have freelance work, you now know more things that are effective. And you start doing less automatically of the things that don't work. And this is what it is all about. Because deep work on the right things, the creation, that leads to that breakthrough moment. Whatever that may be to you. Perhaps it is the goal of $100,000 in 6 months. Or it is a millionaire. Or it is buying a car or a house. Or it is to quit your job, which also has then a monetary goal before you are able or willing to quit your job. Because when you have more focus, it leads to higher quality and higher quantity output. And with this, don't believe me, just look at yourself. Yesterday, or the last time you really were in the zone, in that flow state. Is this true for you? If so, and assuming you work on the right things, it will lead you to more money, or whatever your goal is. But for most it is money, right? And that's why this works even if you only have 5 hours available a week. It might take longer But the combination of deep work on the right things will lead you to more money. It's simply true. And of course, I am biased because I believe, based on my own results, so you can call it belief or seeing the truth, that creating online and sharing it under your own name is one of the most effective things because you're building a monopoly. If you do it right, of course. But that's with everything. There's always an assumption, a big assumption of if. But to get to that place where you do not have to worry about money anymore, because there's too many people that want to work with you, and you already make way more than you spend, you have to become ridiculously, I was about to say you should then focus on this, building that mental firewall. But you don't have to do anything. You shouldn't do anything. There's just consequences. And of course, there's consequences with this dopamine, and especially the bad one, the negatives one, or that have consequences in your life that you don't want. You want to be clever about it and understand what this firewall building, the things, all the practical stuff that you can implement that will prevent you from breaking this wall and never achieving that goal or taking way more time than necessary. You want to find ways to block it and only let the stuff in on the right time that you think helps you, serves you. Because there is good dopamine, even though I don't like to say good or bad. There's, I would say, effective dopamine. For instance, watching this video, learning new things that are true, right? Truth can give you dopamine. When you hear truth, for example, or when you see it, or when you experience it yourself. Whenever you're, for example, outside and doing the walk and talk of emptying yourself of untruth. So then what are some practical things you can do? Well, some free tools that I use myself are Newsfeed Eradicator, Hidden Bar for Mac. It's not a big one, but it works for me. This one is more important. Hide My Email in Gmail. It's a Chrome extension, which, by the way, I don't understand why Gmail doesn't include it already. Just know that it doesn't work on your personal Gmail account, only on workspace accounts. But it prevents me from seeing my emails right away, or when I'm just searching in my Gmail for anything that I'm doing during that creation block. I don't want to then see and be distracted about all my other emails. And I will leave a link below to my Google Sheet where I have over 70 free tools right now. Most of them are extensions or just tools that work both on Windows and Mac that I use while creating, writing, or other deep work, and that I found actually useful and use myself daily or weekly. So you can access it for free. And just know that there is no sponsored links, no affiliate links or such BS. Because when those are involved, it is not true anymore. Then I can say whatever I want, but then it's just about making a quick buck. But let's be honest, you already scrolled through the comments before, right? Most people check the comments when they're watching the video. Now, why do I say that? Because it is an example of that dopamine. And I leave it up to you if it is a good one that you want to keep. But being aware of that habit, looking for it everywhere, that dopamine. In small things like the comment section of a video, and in big things. It often leads to a lack of focus. And a lack of focus results in more thoughts. Now, I make it green, but do you really think that more thoughts are good for you? I won't answer the question. But how does a flow state look like? Do you think during your flow state? You have experienced many moments. Are you thinking while you're in the flow? Actively thinking? Intrusive thoughts, uncontrollable thoughts come in? I don't have them when I'm in flow state. And flow state is the basis of deep work, which is what I want. So look at it yourself. But more thoughts result in less deep work. And now you can say, well, sometimes thinking for me is part of deep work. And I understand. That's not what I'm trying to say. With thoughts, I mean uncontrollable thoughts. It's like when I'm writing and out of nowhere an uncontrollable thought comes in that starts to talk negatively about perhaps a conversation that I have next week with an employee. I don't need that, which results in less deep work. Because in deep work, there is no uncontrollable thoughts. They're just actively thinking and doing, creating, output. And that's the whole point. Less of this deep work, which will basically make this process until you reach that goal, perhaps it is financial, will make that much longer. And to most, it never happens because they just don't understand the importance of deep work and how they can get into it faster, effortlessly, which will lead to a life that they despise. A life where the sun doesn't come up anymore. And now you can argue, well, is that really true? Because do they really want that breakthrough? Do they really want that life, that reach that goal after they become aware of this, of everything that I just shared, and they still don't do the things? Well then, which is a big if, because first someone has to become aware of the truth, but then once they do, and they don't do the things that are needed, then they are fine with that life. However bad it may look like, it is still not crossing the line for them. It's still enough. It's still okay. And nobody can convince them otherwise, because they are okay with it. Nor do I have an interest to convince you, because I know it doesn't work. I'm just saying, life is a precious thing to waste, my friend. We only have one, probably. So are you really okay with the life you have it right now. Now just remember that if one brick falls in that wall, the wall is still there. It's not the end of your life. Only if you let the enemy in by opening your doors. Your mind loves drama, so it will see this brick as the end. It happens a lot. But it's just one brick. Whether it's relapsing on an addiction you have, whether it's procrastinating the whole day and you feel bad about that one day within your whole life, it is simply one brick. So now let's talk about the timing of especially the creation block, because that's arguably the most important. The other ones are there to support the creation, the deep work, the things that are effective. How do you time these three? Well, that's completely up to you. I'm not here to tell you anything to do and to do it my way, because that doesn't work. I'm just sharing the things that have worked for me, and then you can decide for yourself and experiment and look at it. What works for you then? So this is what works for me. We have food, okay? Water and drinks, they don't really have a big impact. Although, as you can see, I've been drinking this one throughout the video. I won't say what it is. Well, I do. It's yerba mate. It's great. It contains caffeine. And I drink that in the morning. I don't do that in the evening, right? And you know why. But food is a more important factor for me. So I eat one meal a day. Outside of the chocolate I eat in the morning after I wake up, which contains caffeine as well, which is why I eat it in the morning. And by the way, it's pure chocolate, so it's healthy as well. It has health benefits. I don't just eat Milka chocolate or Mr. Beats chocolate, right? It's healthy. But food, especially because I just eat once a day. I eat a lot. I'm quite big. I work out every day, which we talk about in a second. But the timing when you eat, it has a big impact. Whenever I eat this big meal, which contains, I'm sure it has more than 3,500 calories. It has more than 150 grams of protein. Whenever I'm finished, I feel tired. I feel lethargic. I'm not able to write, be very creative. I don't want to do much. During those moments, I prefer to watch, to listen, with that filter on, to people online. True, perhaps I watch a course that I bought, or I have calls with my team or someone else. But I mention this and I talk about it because it's one of those big things for me. And I wish I could force you, but that just doesn't work. But look at it yourself, your food intake, by especially experimenting with it and seeing what it does when you eat late in the day. Because when I eat, right now, it's around 4 to 5 p.m. Alright, that's the moment when I eat that one meal in a day. And then I fast for 24 hours, not completely because I eat that chocolate as I mentioned, but eating this late in the day delays that lethargic feeling, making sure I can focus on the quality work that matters. Because if I started to eat in the morning, perhaps I start eating 3 times a day, but each time I eat, just notice with yourself whenever you even eat a banana. And perhaps because I'm in this schedule, it has a bigger impact on me, because I break my fast and the feeling is more intense. But always when I eat, after I eat, I feel more lazy. I become more lazy. It's just not bad. Just start doing less of the deep work. And I don't want that. I think my point is clear. See what works for you. I'm not saying you should try this, but perhaps ask yourself, what is preventing you from doing this? Is it just those uncontrollable thoughts of I want to eat? Because honestly, I have them too. And sometimes I eat earlier because I feel hungry. I feel my stomach making noises and saying to myself, I want to eat. Especially after I've done important things like recording this video. After this, my mind starts to talk likely. Especially if you're just starting to do this, right? It's that your mind becomes very active and it becomes less and less over time. It starts to talk less of those uncontrollable thoughts. They become controllable and the thoughts also disappear because it becomes normal. This pattern of eating late, perhaps eating once a day. And there's again nothing to do. It's only that things change when you have realized what it is that you want, what is preventing you from it, which could be eating in the morning, eating in the afternoon, eating the wrong food that makes you feel lethargic, preventing you from deep work, and that you realize that the deep work will get you the things that you want 6 months from now, 5 months from now, 7 months from now, and that you're simply not okay with that. Not because I tell you, but because you've realized it yourself. That's the only moment when things change. Even if you have only 5 hours available in a week, because if you can write emails 5 days a week, you can write 1 hour for yourself. If you can sit in Zoom calls for 3 hours a week, you can sit down and record yourself for 10 minutes. And if it's bad in the beginning, just ask yourself, what is really preventing you from it? Which is a great question to ask whenever you scan that minimap, whenever you perhaps go outside and do the walk and talk. May you find more flow in life, because it's perhaps one of the only things that really matter. And remember, whenever you experience a painful event, a major setback, not just 1 break, but 3, 4, even 5, whenever that wall feels like it's going to break at any moment, that again is a belief. It is not true. They are part of those uncontrollable thoughts. And if you're in the middle of it, perhaps go outside, or through different ways, journaling, writing, emptying yourself of those untruths, because it may be the end boss before your breakthrough in this game called life. May you keep it at arm's length at all times, or you lose that playfulness that you once had as a child. And by the way, comment your routine below and go back to this video 6 months from now, to see how much your life has changed. I have that creation block in the morning and often extending way later in the afternoon as well. It's my biggest block of the day. It's usually at least 6 hours long, but also divided sometimes 2 hours here, 4 hours there, 3 hours. You get the point. And here's how I think you can approach this. Look at your mental energy distribution. How do you distribute it? What has been true for you? When do you feel high in mental energy? Not physical, unless you are an athlete and that is part of your deep work. But I found that I have most mental energy in the mornings for that deep work. And don't trick yourself by saying, well, I have most energy to watch YouTube in the morning, because that's not true. What I found in this mental energy distribution is that the more of this dopamine, especially the ones that have negative consequences that I do not want, the more of those bricks that I let in. Getting my phone when I wake up and watching a video, a shorter video, a video with entertainment instead of education. The more of those things, even if they're very small and very short, especially those sometimes, the more I let those in whenever I wake up, because sleep is like a hard reset. Right? And after I wake up, the more of those things I let in, the less of this mental energy that I have to get into the flow state, to start with the deep work. It becomes harder. I've noticed it time and again. And then it doesn't matter that it still happens and that those bricks sometimes still go in and break your wall here and there, but may you see it for yourself. Because once you do, automatically you start to change, or not, because then you may not care as much about the thing that you want to do, about the deep work and the result that it gives you. So perhaps look at your goals then, if that's the case, or perhaps look at the deep work itself. And if it is effective, because if you know that it is effective, certain things that you want to do, and you're not doing them because the thing that is preventing you from getting into that deep work are things that you like more, then perhaps there are some clues in that. And there's some truth to be found. And you are experiencing flow state almost every day. People make this up as some magical thing that rarely happens, but scrolling on TikTok is flow state. That's why they're so clever. Because in those flow states, you don't think. You're just scrolling. Just look at it. When you're scrolling on TikTok or Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, you're getting into a flow state. Or listening to music even on Spotify and you're trying to find the right song. You're in a flow state. But especially on TikTok, they've designed the algorithm so that you stay in that flow. And here's how you can start playing in public under your own name. And why you may want to start with YouTube like me. Watch this video or talk soon.